Yeah, special. Just want to start off by saying it's going to be a special night, senior night. This is a special group of seniors. Just what they've been involved in, and I think maybe the top three offenses in school history this senior class has been a part of. 2 New Year's Six games, and then obviously they're the most affected by this year with the bowl ban. They didn't have the opportunity to go to a bowl, but they've continued to fight through injuries. Gates comes to mind, Jordan Wilkins fighting through injuries as seniors, Durante Bolden, who doesn't get to play, but fifth-year senior, already graduated, first person in his family, and I'm just grateful to these guys, and it will be an emotional senior night, and just really want to go out there and perform well for this group of seniors. Injuries coming out of the game. Van Jefferson dislocated his elbow, and he will be out this game. I don't want to say out for the season because I do want to further evaluate him more, but he will be out this game. Markel Pack and Trey Bledsoe also suffered concussions, and they're in the protocol for this week. Alex Givens is toward the end of his protocol. He's in the lifting and running stage, so I would say he's probable, but he's got to clear some of the protocol hurdles, and then Jordan Wilkins will be the same, just limited during practice and will play. Defense, Austrian Robinson should be back, and then we'll look at Jalen Julius and Ross Donnelly as well. That will have a chance, but they're questionable. So Jalen is a concussion. Donnelly is a knee injury.
Question, let us know, bring the mic to you. Who wants to start off?
What's your take on Texas A&M, both sides of the ball? And Vegas says you're favored. Is that surprising a little?
No, I don't know. I'm as far as that concerned, I didn't look at that, but I'm very very familiar with both these coordinators. Coach Mazzoni and Coach Chavis. I've worked with both of them, and both very, very good coaches. You got to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. They have a runner and a thrower. They have 2 very good running backs, several good receivers. So very, very talented on offense. And then defensively, man, they're really good at getting sacks and getting pressure on the quarterback. One of the top teams in the country in third down, getting off the field, getting turnovers. So they're a very, very good team. So I think they're very talented on both sides of the ball and in the kicking game. I think they've blocked several kicks and returned kicks for touchdowns. So they're very, very capable.
I believe it was against Tennessee Martin at the beginning of the year. You got the ball on offense, weren't able to finish the game. You said with the running game, burn off those last 5 minutes, maybe they scored again. It didn't affect the outcome of the game, but this game, turn the page, you got the ball back there and you were able to finish it with the running game. What does that say for where the running game has evolved through the season?
No, I think the running game has been there. It's just been the commitment and making the decision to commit to the running game, and let the O-linemen come off the ball, be aggressive, be physical. I think it's helped our offense, and I think we've become balanced, and I think that opens up some things in the pass game when they have to respect the run game, and the safeties have to come down and make tackles. I think it creates one-on-one matchups outside, but very, very pleased with where it's at. I'm not sure where Jordan Wilkins is, but I just know his yards per carry, which is very important to us. It's not so much the total yardage, but it's the yard. When we do hand it off, we want those runs to be efficient. I think he's averaging over 6 yards a carry. That's a positive thing.
Coach, y'all started the year, you had 4 sacks through the first 5 games. Last 5, y'all had 21 sacks. What's clicking with that D-line that's made them so productive the last few weeks?
You know what? I just think just taking the advantage when it is. You have to earn the right to rush the passer, and that's what we've talked about and trying to. And that's been our deal. We've struggled stopping the run, but if we can get teams in third and long, I think our third down package is really, really good. Our issue's been getting to that situation, but when we have got to that situation, we've been pretty good.
Speaking of the run defense, Matt, do you feel like you guys have improved there? What have you seen the last month in that area?
I do think there's been, when you watch tape, you're looking for it. So you see some improvement, but I think that just the overall the depth and the injuries with Kadir and Victor, people don't even think about those guys anymore. But those guys have been gone for a while. Austria's been out the last 2 games, and and the depth issues at linebacker. I think it takes a toll after a while. But I think just continue to fight and compete and get better. I think that's what we have to continue to do and try to get guys off the field. And we've been trying to hold people, say no 100-yard rusher. Just trying to find a way to compete and get people in long yardage situations. And then I think at that point, I think then we could compete at a high level.
With Austrian and Ross being out the last couple games, you had 42 and 98 really step in there, give you some quality snaps. Just your opinion on those guys.
You know what, I thought, Charles Wiley, he's a little bit undersized to be in there at 3 technique, but he's really got in there and battled and competed. Ryder Anderson played probably his best game last week and, did some good things. And G-Mac's kind of a journeyman. He's also a little bit undersized to be in there, but they gave us some quality snaps. Herbert Moore stepped in there, gave us some quality snaps, and they're in there in the first quarter where they haven't been in the past. They've been more, getting 8 or 9 snaps a game at the end, but those guys are in there in the first quarter, competing and battling.
Talk about the weapon, Christian Kirk.
Has and is one of the best players in our league, for a long time. He's a very, very good player. He's dynamic when he gets the ball in the hands. They do a great job. Coach Mazzoni utilizes him out of the backfield. As a receiver, he's a great kick returner. So we just, you got to know where he's at all the time, and you got to be able to to mark him. And but a great player, and we'll have our work cut out, to stop him.
Coach, what's going on with Ken Webster? I didn't see much of him.
Yeah, just a nagging hamstring injury, just having the burst. He's out there battling, another one of those guys that's out there fighting through injuries. But again, the depth issue, he's battling through it and competing. He just doesn't have that normal burst where he doesn't look like him, doesn't look like himself. But I think he is improving each week, and hopefully these last 2 weeks and these 10 days, he can finish and do a great job. And we'll need him this week. They have a very good, receiving core, and he'll have to play really well for us.
When a team rushes the passer as well as A&M does, what's available to you as an offensive line to kind of slow that down, but beyond winning one-on-ones all the time?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us, and I know I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you don't want to get into a drop-back game and where you're just throwing and they know you're throwing it. As long as you can stay balanced and keep your third downs to a minimum where you're out of those one-on-one pass rush scenarios, that's the hardest thing to do in football, is to be an offensive lineman when everybody in the stadium and the defense knows you're throwing it and you're on your heels. That's a very, very tough scenario to be in. So we want to limit our number of times that we have to be in that scenario. I think that's the number one way to combat it.
We'll take questions up top. Coach, it's kind of a two-part question. First, though, what impresses you the most about Texas A&M's run game? And secondly, you talked earlier about John Chavis, the way he's with that defense. What do you say out of A&M's defense, just how the way they get to the ball?
Well, I think the biggest problem that A&M gives you offensively is they spread the field with very, very good players everywhere. They got good receivers you have to account for, and you got to think about putting 2 on some guys sometimes, and that gives you problems. It gives you a light box, and they have very, very capable running backs with Ford and Williams. They're very, very good players. So I just think they spread the field and create space on you. That's tough. And then defensively, Coach Chavis, he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and they play with an edge. They go after the ball. They're aggressive. They're very, very solid. They have a sophomore linebacker that's made a bunch of tackles. Armani Watt seems like he's been there forever, and he makes a bunch of tackles. They don't have a weakness up front as far as a D line. All those guys are solid. They get a bunch of sacks, and they do a lot of movement. They do a lot of stemming, play some bear, and they're an aggressive attacking defense, and they force you to make some mistakes. So I think it's important that we play really well and limit their negative plays they get on us.
Matt, you talked about how emotional it's going to be before the game. How do you prevent that emotion from kind of spilling over into the game?
Yeah, I think I think we just got to be careful. I think I want them to know that how important they are to the program, but we still got to go play football. And I think we're going to focus more on enjoying these last these 10 days together and focus on enjoying each other for the time we have guaranteed. We're not going to be, hey, this is your last game, and we're just going to, hey, let's go enjoy this, man. Let's go have fun and finish this thing the right way, and let's have something that you'll always remember. And again, we've been on teams with better records, but they'll always remember the season, all the adversity they fought through and they battled through. They'll be proud of this season for the rest of their life.
In recruiting terms, the program took a focus on Texas several years back, had a couple big wins at Texas A&M. How important is it to continue that momentum, having success against those schools for recruiting purposes?
No, and it's it's always big. I think Texas A&M joining the SEC obviously gave us more exposure, and I think we have a lot of students that come to Ole Miss from Texas. So I just think there's a natural connection there, and you just want to keep it going.